Good evening, St. Louis, and welcome into the Billikens Central Postgame. I'm Matthew Rocchio. I will soon be joined by the voice of the Billikens, Bob Ramsey. But for now, as we fix any audio issues there, we're here to break down another Billikens W here in Chaifetz Arena as they down the San Francisco Dons 85-75. Another fascinating game to watch if you are a Billikens fan in this one. Tale of two halves is really the only way to explain this one. The Billikens in the first half held the Dons to just 30 points, and they were down early in that half. They actually needed a surge to get to that 31-30 halftime lead, but man, it paid off, and they put the pedal to the metal and came out and scored over 50 points in the second half to make it an 85-75 win. Of course, in this show, we're not just brought to you by our wonderful fans here in the chat. Please jump into the chat, though we will get to those. We're brought to you here because of our wonderful sponsors, of course, DraftKings Sportsbook, where the crown is yours. Great job, great wagering on DraftKings during this game if you decided to watch it, but we're also brought to you by our wonderful friends at HomeBank. And of course, when you are starting a business, it's not just about starting a business. You also need a banking partner for all the tricky stuff that pops up. And our banking partner here at STL Sports Central is HomeBank. This Billikens postgame is brought to you by our business banking partners from HomeBank. They give you everything from business lending to everyday banking partners since day one. Business isn't just about numbers, it's about relationships. We know that here. And with HomeBank, those relationships make all the difference. They're the team behind our team at STL Sports Central. Visit myhomebank.bank or call 855-577-2001. That's HomeBank, member FDIC, more than a bank. And HomeBank provides us with our money moment of the game. The money moment of the game for the Billikens is not hard to find. There are actually two. We can go with a first half and a second half one. The bottom line, though, the money moment of the game from the Billikens comes from the small ball lineup, the chaos lineup, the 5-guard lineup, the Amari at center lineup, however you want to qualify what the Billikens are doing now when they go small. That was what changed the game. And in fact, let's zoom into late in the first half when the Billikens were trailing 22-28 with 3:22 left in this game. Again, they're down 6 early in this game, 28-22, and then Josh Schertz has to go to Robbie Avila on the bench, which means he's got to go small. Paul Otieno just not having the effect that you want him to have defensively or as a finisher on the offensive end. So they go to the 5-guard lineup. That 5-guard lineup is Quentin Jones, Ishan Sharma, Brady Dunlap, Kellen Thames, Amari McCautry. And in that lineup, okay, those 5 players. Shortest player we're looking at is 6'5". Tallest player we're looking at is 6'7", maybe 6'8", if we get out the calipers and measure some of these guys. So bottom line is, you can call it small, but it's a lot of length. Not a lot of pure size, but there's a lot of length on the court when that happens. So again, Jones, Sharma, Dunlap, Thames, and McCautry in that 5-guard lineup takes things over. It goes from a 6-point deficit to a 1-point deficit, from down 28-22 to down 30-29. They put Robbie Avila back in the game for the last 27 seconds of the first half. Bing, bang, boom. Just like that, the Billikens are leading at halftime 31-30. I'm not done yet with the money mo of the game because we're going to keep talking about this 5-guard lineup. I'm talking about it now. I'm going to talk about it when Bob Ramsey joins us here in a little bit, because fast forward to the second half, we're going to go to 12:58 in the second half. The Billikens are fine. You know, they've taken the lead. They haven't given it up, but they only have a 1-point lead. The game hadn't changed in the first 8 minutes of the second half, or 7 minutes of the second half, because it was still just a 1-point Billikens lead. So again, Robbie Avila picks up his 3rd foul, and Josh Schertz has to go to the bench at that point. What are you going to do? Are you going to put in Paul Otieno, who at that point I believe had played 4 minutes and I think finished with 4 minutes? Are you going to go with Paul Otieno? No. Josh Schertz says no. He goes back to his small ball chaos lineup, which he's gone to 3 times at that point in the season. At this point in the second half, they had gone to this lineup 3 times, one of them being in the first half. They had never gone to this lineup 2 times in a game. The other 2 times they had used it, it had changed the game successfully. They didn't need to go to this lineup again. Tonight, though, they needed it with Robbie Avila picking up his 3rd foul, with Paul Otieno not being the effective player you needed him to be. You needed to go back to it. And what happens? With a 1-point lead, with 13 minutes left to play in the second half, the 5-guard lineup, again, of Jones, Sharma, Dunlap, Thames, and McCautry takes over and turns a 1-point game for the Billikens into a 12-point lead for the Billikens across the next 5 minutes. So we're talking about 7, almost 8 minutes of game time where this lineup goes plus 16 in a 10-point win. That's the game right there, ladies and gentlemen. That small ball lineup, the courage from Schertz to go to it when he hasn't had too many times this year, but knowing and the effectiveness of this lineup. Again, 3 games it's been used. I think one of the games was what might they're 3-0 in all 3 of those games. It's just been a crucial way to play. And so that's our money moment of the game. I know I talked about that money moment a lot, but check out our friends at Home Bank, myhomebank.bank. And let's get here to our chat. The chatter's always doing a wonderful job here on the Billikens Central Post game. Corey Land, 3-0 versus the WCC next year. Let's go to Canal. Decent win in a had-to-win game. Go Billikens. Yeah, of course. When you have a weak non-conference schedule, every game's must win. After the Stanford game, of course, every game's must win because the A10 schedule with teams like VCU is looking like it's going to be pretty close. George Mason is a very good team. And so, they're going to have to keep winning these games as they up it here for the conference schedule. Brandon Smith with a good joke there. Cam Jansen even jumping into our chat here. That is actually the hockey player Cam Jansen. Sometimes people might doubt us, but it is the hockey player Cam Jansen. A couple other stats to look at here. Amari McCautry finishes the leading scorer in this game. He needed a glut of shots. I think he gets 18 points on 14 shots. So not the most efficient game from Amari McCautry. A big thing that a lot of people are going to take away from this game is that when they went to their second version of, because they played that one group of 5 guards together twice. And then they put in Dion Brown for Quentin Jones for another 2 minutes. And they went -1 as a group. And a big part of that was because San Francisco figured out how to just sag off Amari McCautry. He had all these wide open opportunities. He took 2 of the 3s. He tried to create in some of the other plays, and it wasn't really effective. And it's funny that it happened there because, Amari McCautry's out here a lot with guys like Robbie Avila or even Paul Otieno, guys you don't think of as 3-point shooters, but they're shooters in this Billikens lineup. You go to the small ball lineup, Thames and McCautry are both out there. Neither of them are great shooters. It didn't really factor in at first, but eventually San Francisco figured out a way to sag off both Thames and McCautry. The thing there is that give credit to San Francisco, but as with most things, it probably comes down to the Billikens stopping the ball too much, stopping movement in those last few minutes of that small ball lineup, why they weren't getting the cuts, why they weren't getting the drives. It probably gets down to what they weren't doing more so than what San Francisco was doing, but that's something we can dive into in the socials later on this week when we're breaking down this game. So Amari McCautry really was a big game from him. He had his struggles, but I mean, he paced the offense for the first half. I mean, you go to the first half box score. Him and Trey Green both had 7 points to lead the Billikens in the first half. Trey Green has 2 points the rest of the game. Amari McCautry then puts up 11 points in the second half, and it's just the driving. I made that joke the very first game of the season that Amari McCautry was going to touch more paint than an artistic 3-year-old, and at no point has that joke not reigned true throughout a whole game this season for the Billikens, because every time Amari McCautry gets the ball, unless you're sagging off him and daring him to shoot the 3, Amari McCautry is getting in the paint, and it's an effective drive. And so that's why Amari McCautry, despite the fact that it did take him more shots than you want, Amari McCautry with a big 18 points as he leads the Billikens. I think now, 9 games in the season, I think that's the 3rd time that Amari McCautry has been the leading scorer for the Billikens. Maybe not something Schertz planned for, but all in all, that's something you can really build on if you're the Billikens. We're going to keep rolling through the box score here. Schertz looks like they're wrapping up over there. So he'll be joining us here a little bit later on. But the other one, Dion Brown, we're going to talk plenty about him. Scoreless in the first half, and then Dion Brown comes out with 14 points in the second half. He did have 5 boards in the first half. He was everywhere he needed to be. Just couldn't get, just wasn't able to become the shot taker, wasn't getting the drives, wasn't getting the open 3-point chances. He only had 1 attempt in the first half. Then in the second half, he goes 6 of 8 from the floor for 14 points, has the only dunk for SLU of the entire game late as things are breaking down. He kind of cherry-picked a little bit after a defensive play. 14 second-half points for Dion Brown, and this shouldn't come as a surprise for anyone, but if you're new to the Billikens and you're still watching them, yes, they have a 6'3" guard who every once in a while decides that he's going to grab 11 boards in a game. He pulls down 5 rebounds in the first half. He pulls down 6 rebounds in the second half, and it's another double for Dion Brown. Kellen Thames. The numbers that are scrolling below me are going to seem like they're too small for how I'm sure I'm about to fawn over Kellen Thames. But Amari McCautry being able to play the 5 really makes the chaos lineup go. Kellen Thames being That lighting's much better now that I tipped the camera down. Kellen Thames, apologize for that, everybody. Kellen Thames being just this Swiss Army knife, this X factor that other teams can't always account for. The Amari makes it so that they can play the 5-guard lineup because he can play the small ball. Help them win now 3 different basketball games. And I think, that's a third of the season. We're talking 9 games this season for the Billikens. And in 3 of those 8 wins and in 3 of those 9 games, they've had to go to a 5-guard lineup that has changed the game. And the crazy part is they weren't planning to go to the 5-guard lineup. And I think the first game they used it was Chicago State. They weren't planning to go to it. They go to it. It changes the game, and the Billikens roll on in that one. Then they use it against Santa Clara, and while it didn't shift the game like it did against Chicago State, it didn't shift the game like it did tonight. It changed the game. It went from the Billikens just being stagnant, not being able to find their footing. It essentially helped them find their footing through one of the rough parts of the Santa Clara game, and that footing is what they used to win that Santa Clara game. So again, we're talking about one lineup that has been used 9-10 minutes tonight, and maybe another total 11 or 12 minutes in these other 2 games, 20 minutes. And Schertz talks about the sample size that you have to use to take a lineup and base a lineup of what they're doing. It's hard for me not to react already to what this small ball lineup is doing, because you just don't, other than the starting lineup of Jones, Trey, Dion, Amari, and Robbie, I don't think it's crazy to say that the most important and impactful 5-man lineup for the Billikens has been this 5-guard lineup. You're listening to the Billikens Central Postgame presented by DraftKings Sportsbook and also our friends at My Home Bank. Eggplant emoji jumps in here and says, would you say the Billikens have a better shot at going to the dance than Mizzou? No, not at all. And this has nothing to do with the level of talent with these teams. It has to do with how the dance is built and how scheduling is built now, which is it's hard to be an at-large team if you're a mid-major. Josh Schertz has talked about this. Other coaches have talked about this. In the reverse, kind of, showing their ass, certain Power 5 coaches or Power 4 coaches who coach in the Northeast have talked about how they don't want to play mid-majors. And so it's hard for a mid-major to build a resume without winning every flipping game, in their regular season. It's hard for them to build a resume that gets them an at-large bid. If you're an SEC team, you saw it last year, there's 16 SEC teams, 12 make it last year, or 18 SEC teams, 12 make it last year, something insane like that. So if you're an SEC team, if you have a good conference schedule, and if you do what you're supposed to do in your non-con, which if you're a Power 5 team, your non-con, what you're supposed to do in your non-con is win 1 or 2 of your Q1s that you play and blow out all of the Q4s that you play, because that's your entirety of your schedule is Q1s that you might lose, or will lose in the case of that Kansas game, or Q4s that you're going to blow out. And so far, as opposed to maybe an 11-point win the other night for the Tigers, they're not necessarily blowing teams out the way you'd see, but still, an SEC schedule gives you umpteenth off ramps and exits on the proverbial highway to the dance than being in the A10 and playing the non-conference schedule that you are now forced to play because Power 5 teams don't want to play mid-majors. So talent-wise, I think the Billikens are a better basketball team than the Tigers right now. When you look at free throw shooting, defense, 3-point shooting, the things that help you win in conference tournaments and in March, the Billikens have those things. The Tigers right now don't necessarily have those things. Their half-court offense is poor as well. So I like what the Billikens do. But again, they're going to have to run the table. They're going to have to win almost every game in their A10 schedule. They're going to have to pull off some big wins against, again, George Mason's a good team now. VCU is always a good team now. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Before we and Bob Ramsey on here, though, I want to tell everybody about our wonderful sponsor, DraftKings. And of course, you can check them out with our promo code STL Sports. Missouri, your moment is finally here because DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is now live in your state. Now you can make every game more exciting with same-game parlays, money lines, props, and more, all from your phone, all safe, secure, and easy to use. Missouri fans know game day, the tailgates, the noise, the passion, all of it. Now with DraftKings Sportsbook, you can bring the same energy to every snap, every touchdown, and every win. Right now, new Missouri customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. No waiting, no expense, just pure action powered by America's top-rated sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code STL Sports. New Missouri customers bet $5 and get $300 in bonus bets instantly. That's code STL Sports. The crown is yours in partnership with DraftKings Sportsbook.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 21 and over. Physically present in Missouri. Eligibility and restrictions apply. One single use odds boost per customer. Market boosted to plus 100 odds. Max bet $50. Expires at 8:20 p.m. Eastern Time, December 7th. Terms at sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.
And we are back here on the Billikens Central Postgame live from Chaifetz. And here he is, of course, the winner of the notorious, not notorious is a bad word for it, the famous Burns Bragg Award, Bob Ramsey. Rammer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much. And for mentioning that, it was what made it particularly great is because it was shared with my partner, Earl Austin Jr. So that makes it especially terrific.
You guys are amazing. I saw it. Was it 76 combined years of Billikens broadcasting?
75
combined years. Of course, it's the round number, and I completely miss it. So Billikens with another big win. Speaking of 75, that's all the Dons score. The Billikens score 85. Big win tonight. Tale of two halves. They scored 30 points. Each team scores about 30 points in the first half, and then the Billikens are up for over 50 in the second half. Really a crazy game here at Chaifetz.
Well, they finally were able to get a couple threes to fall,
yes,
but so much of it was predicated on locking down the defense, creating turnovers. Most of the first half, the Billikens were on the negative side on the rebounding numbers, end up out-rebounding San Francisco by 11, I think. Yeah, by 11. And that's not a coincidence. You start to dominate the boards, and it turns the game around.
And really the difference there, 6 turnovers in the first half. I think they finished with 4 in the second half. I want to double check that. So 3 turnovers in the second half, and there it is. They turn the ball over 6 times in the first half. They score 30. They score 31 points. They turn the ball over only 3 times in the second half. They score over 50. It really shows you how the ceiling for this team really is tied to how well they take care of the ball.
Take care of the ball and do the things that are energy oriented. That's defense and rebounding. Mm-hmm. And you do those things, play smart. That's turnovers, and play your heart out, and that's defense and rebounding.
I'm sure you talked about this a lot with Josh Hurts. I've talked about it a lot tonight. But the 2 runs, the 2 shifts from the 5-guard lineup of
amazing.
Jones, Sharma, Dunlap, Thames, and McCautry, 2 shifts, about 8 minutes. They went plus 16 in a 10-point win. It just kind of frames everything.
Yeah.
They were incredible. What did Schertz have to say about that 5-guard lineup?
Well, he talked about because you have the ability to do the 5-guard lineup and the way that San Francisco was attacking Robbie and for a short time early Paul Otieno, that he decided to go to that so he could switch all over because when Robbie was in there, they were taking advantage of that. On their screens, and then by putting the 5 guards in, you could switch all 5, and it absolutely turned things around.
And I think the energy that you're talking about on defense obviously gets there when you're running all those switches and things like that. And I think some of the energy from defense connects to the offense because
no doubt
the 3-point shooting starts happening because more movement and the ball stops sticking as much.
There's no question about it. And the aforementioned Earl Austin's been talking about it literally for decades, defense leading to offense.
100%.
And now, but he did mention that tonight there were some stretches where it starts to fall a little bit in the offense, kind of gets everybody fired up. You make a bucket. The Dons are back on their heels, and then it all just feeds off each other.
One big thing from that run with the small ball lineup is he didn't put up a lot of stats in those 2 runs. I think in the first run, it was only an assist for Kellen Thames in that back and forth. And then in the second run, I think he had maybe a bucket and an assist and a rebound and a steal as well. So not a ton of box score stuffing, but every minute of that small ball lineup, you saw how Kellen Thames, the way I put it with some people I was texting during the game, is he warps the court. He changes everything that a team has to do against you.
Yeah. And he only got credited with 3 assists, but his passing is becoming more and more remarkable every game. Some touch passes in traffic. And I think he could have had half a dozen assists easy if guys were making buckets.
Yeah, the Billikens shot making not on par with what they expected there in the first half, but the defense followed up.
Yeah.
And that's a big thing, is that you can have the 50-point half, you have the 30-point half, but can you play the defense in the 30-point half? And no doubt, every game so far, we've seen at least one half of the defense has stepped up and shut a team down.
Yeah, and then another guy to mention, he had a double-double tonight, Dion Brown, but it didn't look like he was going to get the points. He had that flurry at the end, which was a nice reward for the way he played all night. You know, at 6'3", dominating the boards, they're playing a 7-footer and a 6'10". They're playing a 7-footer, a 7'2" guy, and a 6'9" guy. And Dion Brown leads in rebounding. It's ridiculous. And so I'm glad he got the reward of the points late.
And especially, he took one shot in the first half and had 5 rebounds. We always talk about, get your big man touches so he gets involved. Yeah. He's a 6'3" guard getting 5 boards with only one shot. He's the big man. And then he said, follows up 6 boards in the second half, 14 points as well. The drives start finally falling for him. It was a great game for him. Mari McCautry, not the most efficient game. He had to 14 shots to get to 18. But for me, it's always peaks and valleys with Amari. That's the thing I can't get away from him, because you have the first 6 minutes of the game, him and Robbie's 2-man game has come so far. Just their personal 2-man game is coming such like
when
levels.
You see them looking at each other as the play's going on, it's really fun. It's magic.
And then Amari, we've talked about this already, but like he now knows how strong he is, I think.
I think so.
And he just says, okay, I'm just going to lower my head and get into the paint. And sometimes it creates a weird shot. Sometimes it creates a turnover. But a lot of times it creates contact that he's able to pass out of, shoot through, or get a foul call.
Yeah, and I think Coach Schertz felt like in the first half, not just Amari, but as a team, they were trying to do too much at the rim. And when San Francisco made an adjustment on a drive and 2 and 3 guys are waiting, that's when you're smart enough to say and have the vision, where are my open teammates? And I think those things develop much better in the second half.
Again, another player who didn't have a ton of impact in the box score, just but during the game, for me, Brady Dunlap was part of that 5-guard lineup. And again, nothing on the scoreboard or the score sheet necessarily during those runs. Hit a couple threes, but and I know Stu Durano just did a great job talking to him about his 3-point shooting, how it's coming along a little slow. And Sean Sharma just told me, we got to be psychotic about this stuff. We just got to keep taking it. And man, that mentality shows me a guy who is locked in on his mindset of, even if it's not falling, keep taking them. And the 1 3 I think he did hit, it was a huge one in the game.
Well, yeah, Brady had 2 threes, and the second one I love. We keep talking about the connectivity of offense and defense, and it was right in front of us. So second half, he hit it off the right wing, and he came back, and as I think it was Beasley was bringing the ball up, he got down real low in his stance and kind of gave him the Bruce Lee, come on, bring it.
He's got
so that kind of swagger is terrific, but you're making threes, you have confidence, and it goes to other parts of your game.
Big part of this Billikens team is just no one was really in a groove in that first half.
Right.
When you looked at the box score and you saw that neither Dion nor Q had scored at all, you knew that was 17 points in the second half and really paced the Billikens for the second half. What did you think, other than the small ball lineup really opening things up? What were you? Why do you think the defense or the offense made such that big jump in the second half? Is it Robbie getting more minutes after some turnovers? What do you think it was?
I can only tell you what Coach told us, and he said at halftime, he said, make better decisions, and it'll all be there for you. And I think he felt like it wasn't physical; it was mental, and making the right kinds of decisions with the ball, without the ball, and at the rim. And I think when the team bought in. And that's really, I think that's pretty interesting that, you hear coaches talk about halftime, what are you going to do, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes because the players don't listen. They're just playing how they're playing. But this team paid attention. They came out focused on the things Coach Schertz talked about, and it turned the game around.
The depth continues to play. Trey Green had a big first half, 7 points. he has 2 steals and that back-to-back moment
Right.
that kind of keeps the Billikens in the game. Everyone's really contributing, and the big thing here is even when you have a player like Paul Otieno who doesn't contribute in the game, it continues.
You have other answers.
8 out of the 9 guys every game come to play. One guy seems to just be a little bit out of his groove, and then the other 8, in one way or another, have at least 1 or 2 big moments and pick this team up.
And where you know, traditionally, typically, you think as the season goes on, your 8 or 9, 10 guys are going to end up being 8, 7, and maybe even really 6 at real crunch time. But don't forget Jax Kerr and Cam Hudson. In particular, Kerr, I think, has got a chance to be a real contributor before this season's over. And he's already contributed some. And so I think the multiple options on this team are going to continue all the way to the end of the year.
And man, Jax, I watched him go around the world in warmups, and it's just his shooting from that position is obviously, it's so special. At this point, it's not new. We've watched enough basketball in this era to know what we're looking at when it comes to these special players. But he's incredible. Are we getting
our executive producer? My wife is giving us the wrap.
Yeah, no. We just hit 25. We're going. We're good. That's Bob Ramsey. He does multiple post games because he's the best person in the world. Of course, he's the voice of the Billikens over on 104.1 KMOX. You can hear them again as the Billikens take on Bethune-Cookman Wednesday night, 7 p.m. tip-off, which means you're going to go with a pregame on 104.1 at 6:45. That's Bob Ramsey. I'm Matthew Rocchio. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us here on the Billikens Central postgame. He's got to go. I got to go because it's a late night on Saturday, and we're here in St. Louis. Have fun, everybody. I hope everyone enjoyed their 12 bars tonight. Billikens get another win. They're back in action Wednesday, 7 p.m. Again, catch it 6:45 pregame on 104.1 KMOX. I'm Matthew Rocchio. That's Bob Ramsey. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.